And if you're listening to this later on, thanks for joining. I am going to be presenting today on an exciting topic. Basically, as an outcome of our LLM Inside Bootcamp, I had a chance to investigate a lot of the bleeding edge tools that are running on top of the technologies we talked about that are in the no-code, low-code world. And since this whole series is about no-code data and AI, whenever I can go more towards no-code, I get excited because it makes the technology easier for people to use. It's more adoptable by companies that may not necessarily have the talent to do this stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be talking about Langflow, Flowise, and Superagent, and comparing and contrasting these three tools. I actually have all of them running in my Git pod, so I'm just going to make sure they're running now. Sometimes the Git pods shut down. Yeah, so the reason I actually brought these up earlier on Gitpod rather than just sign up for their as a service is that the promise of these tools for companies using it inside their inside their organization's network, their clouds. A lot of times in the LLM use case, we don't want to send the data to a third party, right? So if it can be run in a container or on your own hardware, on your own cloud, I try to prefer those tools. I think I've said this earlier, but creating agents is going to just get easier and easier. And low code and no code is the future for computing, not just for AI, but just for computing in general for human beings. Because if AI can do a lot of the work, the way we interact with the computing systems, which includes AI, will be either just natural language, for example, in the form of prompts, or connecting things together if the AI can't figure it out on its own. And LLMs are relatively new. It's just coming on maybe 9 months where people start to use them more. They've been around for 3-4 years, right? And covered the history in another video. But since ChatGPT came out for the public to use as an app, more people start to use the APIs, and now there's many other public LLMs. So when you have LLMs, that's one innovation that's amazing, foundational. There are other innovations like Langchain, semantic kernel, Llama Index, which are, I wouldn't say foundational to what's happening, but they're part of the foundation for software engineers and data engineers to really interact better with the LLMs. And then no code is another part of that framework, if you will, that allows people to maximize large language models. And though we're focusing on generative AI, there are actually, specifically related to text, there are generative AI no-code tools for image, voice. A lot of these are as a service. We'll cover those at another point. I want to thank our customers who are kind of like our sponsors because they allow us to, first of all, help them and learn through solving challenging problems, and through their funding of our company, basically, we're able to learn and present things like this to you. So thank you. The Kona Bootcamp that we did has ended. It was 5 sessions, and we're going to make all of those available in a separate playlist on YouTube, as well as a blog series with all the homework. And we're going to be looking at the next one. So we're always looking for feedback. Please, fill out the bootcamp survey on kona.io/bootcamp. And Akwi just dropped that in the YouTube chat. That'll be great. Thanks. Oh, and also if you could drop the Discord link for everybody. So if you want to discuss any of this stuff on our Kona Discord, happy to answer questions. We share a lot of great links there, ongoing stream of links related to technology in general, no-code data and AI. The agenda of the bootcamp is strategy and theory to catch you up, to understand how this stuff works. You don't have to be a machine learning engineer. Some LLM design patterns, how we think about applications that use large language models inside, some stacks, technology stacks that we can get started with, and then how to build a chatbot. We're actually going to review some patterns and stacks today because the no-code tools we use all run on top of that. And after we review the frameworks, we're going to go into each of the tools, Langflow, Flowise, and Superagent. LM frameworks, there are probably a lot more than these that I'm listing. Llama Index, Langchain, semantic kernel. But these are the ones that are the most popular, that are in the ethos of people doing prompt engineering. If they're making agents, they're generally using one of these tools. The way we can interact with LLMs, which I'll go through, is we can interact directly with LM API. We can use a framework like Llama Index to index and ask questions on our data. And that's the pure focus of Llama Index. We can do similar things with Langchain and use APIs and create chains of tools that can intelligently choose which type of tool to use for what type of scenario. And then, of course, there's Microsoft's heavyweight soon-to-be champion, I think. I don't know. I think semantic kernel is better, but Microsoft's edition, though it's been in development much longer, it got released in March. It's another framework that can also work with Langchain and Llama Index. With your application talking to LM APIs, it's actually a really quick and dirty way to get something running. We've done apps with Bubble and OpenAI, and there's templates on Bubble's landscape of templates if you go Google it. We've done integration with Make, with OpenAI, and with Airtable for data processing with LLMs. And all of these basically were done without any programming. I will cover these later in depth in subsequent sessions of exactly how to do this. And we've done some, Python programming with API as well, with Airtable. Can't really do too much agency, meaning the tool acting on its own to figure out what to do, but it can automate specific processes. Llama Index is a framework that allows you to get your data into several different types of vector databases, which are essentially the best memory for AI, especially in terms of if you wanted to talk, quote unquote, talk to your data, you could copy and paste it into one prompt. And that prompt, if it goes beyond the token limit, wouldn't work. So when we use Llama Index, you could have millions of rows in whatever vector database, and it finds the relevant text, content, documents, sends only the snippets that are relevant to your question or prompt, and then it essentially gets an answer back for you, all kind of done. You could do this, you could build this yourself. Early LM engineers were doing this themselves until Llama Index came out. And it has both a Python and a TypeScript language framework. So it used to be Python only. Now there's a TypeScript version I saw on GitHub, relatively new. And it by itself doesn't do agency as well. It can do some agency talking to external systems, but primarily it's focused on your data, asking questions against your information. Langchain, it essentially is the most popular toolkit in terms of creating agents. There are other frameworks like Superagent, SuperAGI going towards completely autonomous systems, whereas in Langchain, you have a little bit more control, and you can either use Langchain's data loaders, or you can use Llama Index inside Langchain. There's lots of different existing tools that are there that you can use, lots of great examples, lots of good blog posts. And Langchain is actually the framework on which Flowise and Langflow are actually built on top of. Actually, Superagent also uses Langchain. So if that's any signal for it being popular, it's it's as good as any, right? Like 3 no-code tools are using Langchain as their back end, if you will. And then, of course, semantic kernel. You may not see a lot of stuff out there now, but I think it's going to be used in business more because it's one of their implementations is in C#. They have one in Python as well, and Microsoft Office's Copilot stuff is built on top of it. So if you're going to do anything that's enterprise grade, it's worth looking into semantic kernel. And semantic kernel can work with Llama Index, and it can work with Langchain. So it's not like you're losing out. In fact, using semantic kernel, you get the best of all worlds, all 3 of these frameworks. So Langflow is written in Python, though you don't necessarily have to use it in terms of the Python aspect of it. You can just use the user interface. Flowise is written in JavaScript, TypeScript. So it uses the Langchain JavaScript version, whereas Langflow uses the Langchain Python version. And then Superagent, very new, it uses the Python Langchain version as well. Flowise, I would say, user interface is pretty easy. I'm not necessarily a big fan of just making programming into a graph and calling it no code, but in terms of getting things done, the cool thing about Flowise is that they have templates that people have made that you can just use. The Langchain JavaScript version does not have all of the features that Langchain Python version has. So, basically, if you're okay with those limitations, Flowise is pretty good UI. I'll show it to everybody in a second. Langflow, and by the way, Flowise also allows you to do JavaScript functions inside your GUI, inside your web user interface, so that you don't, even if you did want to program, you don't have to open up a file to do it. Langflow, same thing, right? Because both of these are running on top of Langchain, they expose the same general configurations that Flowise does. They also have some ready-to-go templates that people have. It lets you, do Python functions in the browser. There is a way to export these agents in Langflow as a JSON file, and then that JSON file can be run using a JSON runner. I think that's a great pattern. It also works with Chainlit. Chainlit is a tool that I showed the last couple of weeks to quickly create Llama Index and Langchain chatbots, and it's really cool. But Linkflow is another integration, so you can export the JSON and then say to Chainlit, run this agent that I created in Linkflow. As you can see, same shit, different day. You have the same general objects that you're going to be manipulating, and I think that both of them are great. They're pretty much the same thing, different technology under the hood. Maybe at some point they'll be able to differentiate. And then Superagent, trying to do the same thing, but it looks like they're taking a different approach. They don't want to necessarily focus on, at least now what I can see is, just putting things together for Langchain to execute. Although it does use Langchain under the hood, it actually focuses on how do you get data into some document vector database, and then how you expose an agent as an API. And that workflow I really like. It's not 100% no code, because you still have to employ your API elsewhere, but you can make an API with Superagent and then connect it to your other software All of these tools have it as a service, meaning a software as a service that you can sign up for and try it out. I have tried them out, and then what I'm doing is I'm actually trying out pulling their open, because they're open source. I can pull that down and run myself. So let me actually shift over to showing you the different systems. Akwi, can you confirm that you're seeing the Visual Studio Code?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. So first demonstration, again, in order of the how I explained it, Flowise. I'll just show you guys what I did. I pulled it with Gitpod. Gitpod, it's a great tool that you can just say, open up this GitHub repository. I looked at their README and kind of figured out what I need to do. Essentially, there is a back end for it, and then there is a front end for it. And they do have Docker files, right? And I believe if I go to, let's see, there we go. So this is the Flowise interface. And I didn't need a database because it uses a SQL-like database to bootstrap, though I believe you can connect it to another relational database. So all of this stuff that you're creating gets saved in a database and not just a file. And essentially you have chat flows that are constructed. These are existing chat flows. There are also tools. Tools are basically, it's a Langchain terminology, and a tool can be used inside a chat flow. So if we take a look at this tool, we can describe it just like in Langchain. We can make it look pretty with an icon. We give it an output schema, and giving it an output schema basically allows both Langchain and this tool to interact through an interface, right? And so when we say, save column 1, column 2 to Airtable, it will parse it, and it will then interpret that into the JSON format, which then will be sent to Airtable using the Airtable API, right? And this is just JavaScript, right? Here's another one. Oh, sorry, looked at this already. Sending a Teams message where, again, you describe it with the name. You say, here's my schema. I just need to send content, and then it uses Teams webhook URL, in which you can specify where it goes. Now, looking at a chat flow, there's a little bit more involved. So you can see some of them have icons that explain. So for example, this one uses Zapier natural language understanding to send tasks to Zapier. This is a web page Q&A, so you give it a web page and you can basically talk to it. So if you're familiar with Langchain, especially Langchain JavaScript, you can understand what these are representing. So HTML to Markdown splitter is actually an object in the Langchain JavaScript, as are all of these. And instead of you putting the parameters in code, you're basically setting the parameters in a GUI. You still need to know, kind of what these things are in order to get it to work. The creation of a tool is pretty easy, like editor of the ones I was showing you. And then you can also load a tool from a file. So for example, if I went to the marketplace and I said, I want this template, right? And I can edit it and customize it, and I'm going to just add it to my tools. I now have this tool in my toolkit, and I can export this as a JSON file, and that JSON file can be imported by somebody else. So pretty standard. Overall, I think it's fine. Next one that we'll take a look at is Langflow. Now, Langflow, they provide a pretty easy to get started, set of instructions. As you can see, I literally just did Docker compose up, and after doing an install, and it's up and running. Linkflow also uses a SQLite database, but it can use other databases to store everything. And when you log in, you can upload your collection of projects. You can download the collections. There are some community examples, which are kind of like templates. So, for example, if I wanted to check in the back end this up, hold on 1 second. You know what? I think I may have just shut it down. So I'll just run it again. It is running. Maybe I just need to expose the port. There we go. I think that's it. There we go. So I'm pretty sure this was coming from their online, public API. But let's say wanted to fork this example. Unknown note conversation buffer memory. Here, let me do this. Let me refresh. And so there's some contention between, I guess, the front end and the back end. It's likely because it's using Git pod based, you're also Git pod takes a port number, makes it a URL, and the Docker Compose is likely not ready for that. So, for example, the Docker file may be looking for a configuration, and essentially, I may not be giving it the right URL for the API, but I think you get the idea. You can take a look at one of these examples so you can get an idea. Although I don't think it's going to let me do that unless the whole thing is running. I'm going to try one more time. I'm just going to say Docker compose down. And what I'm going to do is I'll just bring it up the old-fashioned way, which is I'm going to go into the front end. I should go into source backend. And the backend has no README, but I can figure out, I guess, how to run it. So, yeah, that's too much work. So, oops, we'll come back to this. Maybe we'll do a deep dive. Yeah, we'll do a deep dive on this later. Just looking at their backend configuration, you can see that they have a set of document loaders, LLMs, and these are just, again, representing objects inside Langchain. They have different memories, prompts, splitters, toolkits, tools. And this is what Langchain is doing. Langchain is making all of this available to you as objects, and you don't have to create them. And then Langflow and Flowise, for that matter, is making it easy for you to just choose from a catalog of things and build it out. You know what? Let me just check if the README does a better job. So, yeah, that's not how I want to run it. That's not how this is like to use the completely compiled package. I actually just want to run the code. So Another time. And then finally, we have Superagent, which is not as impressive. It's a relatively new tool. The guy that made Langchain UI pivoted to make something called Superagent, and it's relatively simple. I've got it running. I actually had to get the database running first, just using a Docker. I ran a Postgres instance. I then ran the backend API, which is based in Next. And then there's a front end, which is based in React. And looks like it's going okay, not any errors here. And I've already logged in. So, but I made a new account and I logged in. So simple things. I can set my API token. So for example, I can go here and I can say open AI. Although I've already set it in the ENV. Oh, never mind. I think this is tokens to give people access to my API, because that's what Superagent actually creates. So yeah, so in the setup, I set the OpenAI key that I have. I had to set up a Pinecone database for it to work. And then what I can do here is I'll go and upload a document. So we'll say React paper, and I'll find it online. React paper PDF. And I'm on my other browser, right? I'm just grabbing the PDF, right? It's basically downloading it, and it's using Langchain to embed it and send it to Pinecone for me. There is, let's say, a URL. I'll take one of my blog posts that I've done recently on how to build a infinitely scalable UI. Infinitely scalable AI with Apache Cassandra, and we'll just say infinite scale AI. Okay. And it probably just went there and indexed. So I've got my documents in here. I don't need any particular prompts, although I can make a prompt with some inputs, and it will allow me to change the behavior of these agents. As we've talked about, prompts are the core of LLM engineering. As you notice, it says, hey, if you wanted to use the chat history, put this in there. So what it's doing is basically making it easier to ease into LLMs. And then there's a tool, Registry, similar to Flowise and Langflow. You can give it a name, you can give it a when it's useful for, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say search, and it's useful for getting up-to-date information on topics that are new and relevant. That's the web search. Okay. I can also choose another agent that I've made inside Superagent as a tool. Pretty easy. You can do that in Langchain, obviously, but this is just making it easy to do it here. So I've got a new tool. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can use another one. Replicate is a model hosting, LM model hosting company that can give you basically cheaper versions of OpenAI. But again, I'm not going to go through that. This is interesting. You can make a tool by just giving it an API and the Open API spec. And that Open API spec is how it understands, how to use that, right? That's kind of cool. And then now that I have a document and at least a tool, I'm going to make a new agent. And it's got React, but it's also got OpenAI. So in this case, it's literally just using OpenAI for doing everything. Now with the React, it's basically going to be using the Langchain implementation of React. So I've actually not used this one yet, but I'm going to go ahead and try. And I can turn on Bing search next. And I can enable these two documents. Hit next. And it's giving me a prompt to start with to do basically React. And so the React prompt is very simple. Answer the following questions as best you can. You have access to the following tools, and there's a tools registry that it's taking from here, right? And then it says use the following format question, the input you must answer. You should always think about what to do. The action to take should be one of the tool names, right? So from the tools registry, action input, the input to the action, observation, the result of that action. And then this thought action input can repeat n times. And then there's a final thing is I know the final answer and then the final answer. So what it will do is it will take the question, it will determine the tools, and it will come up with a response like this. And then Langchain essentially parses this and executes it and keeps doing this n number of times until it gets to a final answer, right? And it can give a previous chat history for this. Go ahead and use this. I don't need to do anything fancy with this. It's letting me set a OpenAI or OpenAI chat model. In OpenAI, it's the traditional, relatively costly model of DaVinci or OpenAI chat, which it gives me then 3.5 turbo with more like larger context lengths here, 16K or GPT-4. I'm just going to use turbo 16K. I've got my LM key, which I'm not going to share with all of you. I'm just going to copy and paste it and then save. And I'm actually doing one. Oh, actually, you know what? It's not showing my key. That's cool. And I'm going to enable memory, meaning the history of the interactions will be sent to it as well. So I'm going to do a memory. Right? And I'm going to save this roles agent. Okay. A simple agent that has access to the React paper and a blog post I wrote. I'm going to go ahead and say create agent. And here's my agent. Now, what I don't like about this is that I can't really edit this agent. I can only run it. I can fork it, or I can delete it. I don't know why that is. Anyways, when I go to run it, I have clicked on run. It's taking a second. Yeah, there we go. It gives me this kind of workbench to essentially try out my agent. And it has the prompt that I'm using. It has given me a URL to use in my applications if I want to. I think I can add more I don't have any more documents, so I'm not going to add it. I can add other tools, but I don't have any more tools. So I'm not going to mess with it. And if I say, you know, how do you build an infinitely scalable AI? Right. And I just hit enter. Let's say, fail to predict. Next public. Okay, well, I can fix this. I believe I have to do something like, give me 1 second. And basically, in the ENV, if you give me a moment. I have given it. Superagent API. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but it was working earlier. Maybe I have to restart the services, but you can see this is the env file for the UI. And there's an env file for the backend as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it has everything it needs. So I'm not sure exactly why it's failing. I'm gonna try something else here. Let's see. Go ahead and kill these extra ones that I'm not using right now, and go back here. And if you want to fetch, okay, so let's try this again. We can go agents, hit run, say test. Well, you know what? I'm gonna just log in to their SaaS version and just basically do the same thing. I'm just gonna log in and use some stuff that I put up here earlier. So I had put the React paper. I'm gonna add this URL. Create it. As with anything that's open source, have to be patient. We got our search tool, right? Okay, good. Got our agent. And I think I cannot edit this. So I'm going to make a new agent. Do React. And with the search. And we'll put both of these documents in there. We're going to use this. And I'll put my key for the OpenAI in here. Okay, we've got a new agent, and I'm going to go ahead and run it. Say, trying out. Okay, we'll say, how do you make an infinite scale AI? Right? Fine. Give it a token. Okay. It's like they've added a few things that I wasn't familiar about. Something's working. And you know, if you haven't been playing with this stuff, LLMs are taking content that you're sending it, and then they're analyzing it, and it's not instantaneous. In this case, what's probably happening is it's looking at its documents to see if there's anything relevant. It's maybe also doing a search on Bing to see if it has relevant stuff. And it's hopefully going to just run, even if I move away from it. So actually, I'm just going to let this run in the background. And I think I figured out what we may need to do for our problematic Superagent. So while this is running, I'm going to go back to my instance of it, the one that's in my Git pod, and I'm going to make a new agent that is actually just the OpenAI one, and I'm going to use my search, use both my papers, say, I think I need an assistant. Yeah, okay. So LLM model, I'm going to use 16K. I have my key in my clipboard, but I'm going to just make sure I have the exact characters. Okay. Let's see. Let's try it out. This one is still running. Let's see. Nope. Same issue. So unfortunately, folks, it's not doing as I expected. I'm going to try one more time with the OpenAI one here, and we'll call it a day. Okay, great. So I'm going to run it. It may be that their system is down, but I have seen this work. I promise you that it seemed to work pretty well. But anyways, it creates an API, and there we go. So it gave me an output, and the way it gave me the output was it first said, I'm going to need to use this infinite scale AI, right? This is a tool that I created. And it found some relevant information. And it said, to create infinitely scalable AI, you would need to utilize technologies like Apache Cassandra. Well, yeah, I wrote that article. That's exactly what I said. And then it, continued on and probably got other information from the LLM itself. And this is the answer I got. And I'm pretty happy with that. I can also say, can you compare the React paper with the Flare paper? And you know what? I'm expecting it to either hallucinate, find something on Bing for the Flare paper because I didn't upload it, right? And get back with an answer. Yeah, I think Superagent may be having some scale issues, but we'll let it go. Coming back to the presentation to wrap up today's session, and I'll come back to it. Maybe it will perform. You still need to do prompt engineering, as you can see. It's still a thing. You still need to do a little bit of the data engineering and understanding where the data is coming from. Even though it's low code, no code, it's still data engineering, just low code data engineering or no code data engineering. But from a software engineering perspective, it really allows you, at least the aspect of creating an API, right? These systems allow you to configure these agents and just create an API. And then you can use that API without programming. I think that's very powerful. And again, the frameworks are already being used, so you don't have to even think about it, right? In the back end, it's using Langchain. So I would say go ahead and sign up for these online or pull down the code and check it out. Would love to get your feedback on our Kono Discord and on YouTube to see which ones that you guys liked. and which ones you'd want to investigate more. So thank you again for joining. Dream big, and join our Discord. Take a look at the Kona.io website. All the links that we're curating are on here. The same links are put into the Kona Discord channel. And looking forward to the next bootcamp. So see you guys soon.